The MPS process stands for meaning, pleasure, and strength. I would like to elaborate on each one of these elements. Why? Because asking the three questions, what is meaningful to me? What provides me with pleasure? And what are my strengths? Can contribute to both higher levels of performance and, more importantly, to higher levels of mental well-being. Specifically, it is about finding the overlap among these three elements. So if I'm able to find something that is meaningful, pleasurable, and is an expression of my strength, then I'm in my peak performance zone, performing at my best, and my peak experience zone, my happiest. So when we talk about meaning, there are two ways to talk about it. This is a distinction that was made by Viktor Frankl in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl talks about the meaning of life, which is about finding a grand purpose. I want to educate the youth of the world, or I want to eliminate hunger, or and discrimination, or whatever it is. So this is the meaning of life. And then there is the meaning in life. And that is about finding meaning in what we do. This is the small letter rather than the capital letter M of meaning. Both are important. While it's wonderful to find the meaning of life, and some people do, many people don't. And that doesn't mean that we're lost, that all hope is lost. Far from it. Finding meaning in our day-to-day activities. For example, finding meaning in a text that I read, finding meaning in an interaction with another person. These are very important experiences that can imbue our lives with meaning in life, rather than perhaps the meaning of life, which is a bigger question. So what provides you meaning? And the answer to that may be, well, what provides me meaning is interaction with people. What provides me meaning is learning, studying, and making progress in a particular field. What provides me meaning? Question number one. Question number two, what is pleasurable to me? What do I enjoy? Once again, there's an important clarification here. When we look for pleasure, it is unhelpful and, in fact, detrimental to be looking for pleasure in everything that we do all the time. Painful emotions such as sadness, anger, disappointment, frustration, anxiety are part and parcel of every life. In fact, there are only two kinds of people who do not experience painful emotions like anger or sadness or anxiety, or envy, or you name it. There are only two kinds of people who do not experience painful emotions. The first kind are the psychopaths. The second kind of people who do not experience painful emotions are dead. So if you experience painful emotions at times, it's actually a good sign. It means you're not a psychopath and you are alive. Good place to start. We can certainly build on that. So when we talk about pleasure, we're not talking about constant pleasure, but we're talking about an overall experience of pleasure. So what provides you with pleasure? Is it working with people? Is it researching? Is it teaching? Is it oiling the wheels of the economy? What do you enjoy? Is it crunching numbers? What gives you pleasure? This is the second important question in the MPS process. The third important question is, what are my strengths? And what are my strengths actually is divided into two related interdependent questions. The first one is just that, what are you good at? What are your strengths? And that could be, I'm good at crunching numbers. I'm good with people. I have a high EQ. I'm a good writer. That is an answer to the question, what are your strengths? What are you good at? The second question, which is no less important, is what gives you strength? In other words, what energizes you? What are your passions? And it's a question that we need to ask is what provides us both. In other words, what are we good at, and what strengthens us and energizes us. So we have these through questions and their sub-questions. What is meaningful to me? What is pleasurable to me? And what are my strengths? And when we make a list of each one of these and then find the overlap among the three, that's when we are in our zone, so to speak. That is when we're in our zone of peak performance at our best. And this is also when we are at our best emotionally or overall in terms of our levels of happiness. Let me share with you just a personal example or a few personal examples. So what is very meaningful to me and has been for many years is research. Pleasurable, doing research, I must say I do not enjoy. I look at my mentor, Professor Alan Langer, and I see the joy in her eyes when she does research, the whole process from beginning to end. And I must say I'm envious, but I give myself the permission to be human. Another student of mine, Leah Crum, today she's a professor at Stanford. She just loves research, the whole process from A to Z, and that is great. Not pleasurable for me, and yet very meaningful. In terms of strength, I'm okay at it. Not great, but okay. So MPS, not an overlap, not in the middle, or the intersection among these three the three questions. Music, very, very meaningful to me. I think music is, metaphorically speaking, I guess, the language of the gods. I agree with George Eliot, Marianne Evans, who once wrote, "I would have no other mortal needs if I could fill my days with music." Very meaningful to me, very pleasurable. I love music. Strength, you don't want to hear me sing. So not an MPS product for me. I listen to music, I listen to a lot of music, but I didn't choose music as my, as my path. Teaching, very, very meaningful to me. I love to teach, very pleasurable to me. And when it comes to the strength questions, am I good at it? And does it provide me energy? Is it my passion? Absolutely. So when it comes to the MPS process, teaching is right there, which is why when I did this process, 15 years ago or so, it became very clear to me that my path is teaching. I use a lot of research. I read research. I'm very grateful for researchers, but I didn't choose the researcher's path. Others of my colleagues are different. They don't love to teach. They do it because they have to, and yet they thrive, they flourish when they are when they are doing research. So they also find themselves in academia, and happily so. The MPS is a good exercise to go through when you are thinking of what you want to study, when you're thinking of whether you want to pursue an academic career, and if so, what that academic career will look like. So that's the MPS process. I talk about this a lot more in my book, Happier, and actually go through the exercise, or help you go through the exercise. I want to say a few words about what it is that graduate students can do to increase their likelihood of flourishing and thriving. The first thing that I want to talk about is dealing with stress. Today, the issue of stress is probably the number one reason why companies, organizations call me up for consulting, for lecturing, for help. Stress is a huge issue. It's a huge issue in academia, among undergrad students, among graduate students, among faculty. It's very pervasive in different workplaces, be it banking, in law, teaching. Now, the question is, first, why there's so much stress today, so much more so than in the past? And second, what do we do about it? So the answer to the first question, why is there more stress today, is because we have many more things to juggle today. Life was in many ways simpler in the past, not necessarily safer or even better, but simpler. We didn't have all the distractions of being on and on, and there was no artificial light, so the day ended for most people, unless they use candlelight, the day ended of a scholar or a banker, at sunset. So life was simpler. It was less complicated than it is today. There were fewer distractions as well, whether it's the news, views that we are bombarded with around the clock. They contribute to the stress. Much more noisy today, whether it's the sound of cars or the sound of music that's all around us all the time. That contributes to stress. What do we do about it? So, here is the thing. What researchers have found is that actually stress is not a problem, even though it's been vilified and attacked by the World Health Organization, by numerous scholars and practitioners. It's been vilified as the silent killer and as the disease of the 21st century. Stress is actually in and of itself not bad for us. Think about the following analogy. So you go to the gym and you lift weights, and what happens to your muscles when you're lifting weights? Well, what happens to your muscles is they're stressed. Now, is that a bad thing? No, not necessarily. Because if you go to the gym and you lift weights, and 2 days later you go back to the gym and you lift more weights, and a week after that you go back again, and you lift more and more weights gradually, it actually makes you stronger, physically healthier, more resilient. And not a bad thing, for sure. But what if you go to the gym? So stress in and of itself, not a problem, actually good for you. Stronger, more resilient, healthier. But what if you go to the gym and you lift weights, and a minute later you lift more weights, and then more weights, and more weights, and a day after you go again for the same session and more weights, and so on and so on? That's when the problems begin. That's when you get injured. That's when you get enervated rather than energized. Weaker rather than stronger. Stress, therefore, is not the problem. The problem is the lack of recovery. That's when energy levels go down. That's when stress becomes a problem. The problem in today's world is that people don't recover enough. And when I say people, I mean graduate students, I mean faculty members, I mean bankers, I mean teachers. We don't have enough recovery because we don't have time off. So taking a lunch break, that's time off, potentially. But if we take a lunch break and we're on the phone at the same time, we're doing work at the same time, that's no recovery. Closing your eyes and breathing deeply, even 3 deep breaths, that can go a long way in the form of recovery. Getting a good night's sleep, and again, it doesn't matter if you don't fall asleep, but just lying down in bed and getting your quota on sleep, that's so important. So when you're thinking, I'm going to pull in all night or sleep just for 3 hours because I have so much work to do, no, bad idea. Bad idea because your memory actually is hurt. Bad idea because you're not getting the recovery that you need. And that's when stress will have the better of you. That is when stress really becomes a dis-ease, as opposed to energizing and strengthening experience. So recovery, and again, recovery on the micro level, anything from 30 seconds break to 1 hour break to a good night's sleep, and all the way up to a vacation of taking time off, whether it's to read fun books or to go climb the Himalayas, whatever it is. Recovery is important. So that's the first tip that I would give, especially to graduate students, because I remember, I learned that later on in my graduate experience, and it made all the difference. The difference between my first 3 years and my last 3 years, a very big difference, largely because I understood the nature of stress and when stress can be beneficial versus hurtful. Periods of recovery. Just a couple of other very brief tips. I don't know if you exercise, but if you don't, right after this video is over, head over to the gym or go for a walk or swim or play, football or whatever. Exercise is key for mental health and physical health. Not only that, it will help you actually become a better student. One of the ways to help our brain be more plastic, as well as to create new cells, so neuroplasticity and neurogenesis, physical exercise. Again, you don't need to be an Iron Man or woman. You can do as little as 30 minutes 3 times a week, or if you know what high intensity interval training is, you can do that even less than 30 minutes 3 times a week. So physical exercise on a regular basis. If you meditate, great. If you don't, try it. It can really help, 5-10 minutes a day of just closing your eyes and focusing on the breath going in and out, or if yoga is your thing, doing yoga, or listening to music for 5-10 minutes a day with your eyes closed, focusing on the music, not while doing other things. That's not just recovery, that also has all the benefits, and there are many benefits of a mindfulness practice. Gratitude. Express gratitude on a regular basis, whether it's writing down the things for which you're grateful, whether it's sharing with your friend the things you're grateful for in her or him, or in the world in general. Even once a week of gratitude exercise goes a long way, contributing to happiness as well as physical health, interestingly, mind-body connection. Last thing, most important thing. Relationships, number one predictor of happiness. Quality time we spend with people we care about and who care about us. And when I talk about relationships, I don't mean virtual relationships. 1,000 friends on social media are no substitute for that face-to-face interaction with your BFF, best friend forever, or with a colleague from work, or spending time with your classmates after class. These are invaluable experiences in the ultimate currency, the currency of happiness. I wish you all the best. I hope you continue to do important, meaningful work. I hope you continue to enjoy your work and that you exercise your strength. Take good care. Bye-bye.